Next up, we need to work on reviews. Reviews are going to be actually powering quite a bit of our website. First of all, when you're viewing a store card, it will tell you how many reviews that actual place has. You can click through to it and you can see that there is a number of reviews for each of the stores. There are different people who have left those reviews. You can also see when they have left the review. And then finally, when you are logged in, you can leave a review yourself as well as leave a number of stars. So that's what we're going to be going for here. It's also going to be powering our top layout, which will give us the average rating of reviews, and we're going to rank them based on that. So let's go over to our models here. And if you're feeling like fairly comfortable with this sort of thing, maybe take a pause and try to do this yourself. Otherwise, gear up for the ride because here we go. We're going into our models here, and we're going to make a new one called review, capital R.js. We're going to do the same thing we've been doing before. We're going to import Mongoose. We're going to set the promise to global. Then we'll make our schema. Then we'll export the model itself. Good. So we're all set up with our model here. Last thing we want to do is go to our start.js and import our model here. And we're ready to go. So what are the different fields that we need on our review schema? Well, we need the following. We need a created date. We need an author. We need a store for which that review was being sent for. We need the text of the review. We need a rating of the review. And that's all that we actually need. So created is going to be a date. So let's open that one right up. We'll say type is a date. And the default is going to be date.now. Then the author is going to be a type of, well, this is going to be a relationship because you need one of your existing users to be the author. So it's going to be mongoose.schema.object.id. The ref is going to be our user model, right? Because it's going to reference another document in our database. And then required is going to say something like you must supply an author. Okay, now our store is going to be very similar to that. We are going to have a type of the object ID. The reference is going to be our store model. And the required is you must supply a store. The text is simply going to be a string, and required is your review must have text. And then finally, our rating is going to be a type of number, and it's going to have a min of 1 and a max of 5. So it'll give us the values that we need there. And if someone tries to submit something on either end of that, it will error out for us. Now what we need to do is to create the interface for actually submitting a review. So we're going to be doing that on one of our single store pages. So that would be on our store.pug. And that would be down here. Now I don't want to do just the review code right inside of here. We're going to do that inside of a mixin. So we'll open up our sidebar here. We'll go into our views, go into our mixins folder, and we'll make a underscore review form.pug. And we'll make our mixin called review form that takes in a store. And from that, we are going to return a form tag, which has an action of, we need some backticks here, /reviews, /. We'll put the store ID in the action URL route, no problem. So store underscore ID. The method will be post, and we'll give it a class of reviewer. Okay. Inside of that, we need a text area with the name of text, because that's going to line up with the field that we have here. Then we need a placeholder, and that will be set to, did you try this place? Have something to say? Leave a review. Then we need the review meta. Well, actually, let's just get that going for a sec so we can actually see what that will look like. So we'll go back into our store.pug. We'll go above our block content, and we'll include our actual mixin. So mixins /review form. Then down here, we can say we want to make sure that they are logged in. So if user, then if that is true, we'll just use our review form and we'll pass it the store, right? Because we have the store variable. It's already available to us. If you pass it to the store, it should be able to accept that data. So if I refresh this page layout now, oh no, we get an error. Let's see what we did here. It's telling us that there is no, you have to learn how to spell before you do this stuff. Review form. There we go. Let's see now. Now I'm not seeing anything because I'm not logged in. So I'll log in real quick. And now I'm seeing that, did you try this place? Have something to say, leave a review. So that's our text area. Then we can go back to our review form here and just continue on with what we have. Now, the HTML layout of this is pretty important because what I want to have is this actual stars layout where you hover over the stars and it will correspond with an actual radio button input. So as a sibling to text area, we'll have a reviewer meta. Inside of that, we'll have a reviewer underscore stars. Inside of that, we are going to do a loop for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because we need 5 inputs here that are going to be checkboxes. However, I am going to do it backwards, and I'll explain this in just a second. So we'll say each num in, and we'll just make an array here. 1 or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then for each of those, we need an input with the type of radio button. And we want a required attribute. The ID of it is going to be backticks stars, and we'll put the num in there. So stars 1, stars 2, stars 3, etc., etc. The name of this is going to be rating because this is going to be sent over to our model, and that's what rating is right here. And the value of it is going to be the num. So if I give that a refresh now, you're not going to see anything. And if I inspect it, you will see that it's there, but I'm actually hiding it with CSS. So crack that open, crack that open. You'll see here like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. They are being displayed none. And that's because I don't actually want the inputs themselves to show up, but we are going to be using the labels to show stars in place of these. So we'll give it a label here, and it's going to have a for attribute of stars num. And the reason why I do that is because if you want to be able to click a label and select the input that's associated with it, then you must make sure that your for and your ID are the exact same thing. Then inside of that, we can use our hash curly brackets num stars just as a label that we have there. So if I give that a refresh now, you'll see that I've got this nifty little stars layout that when I hover over top of it, I'm able to click on it and select the number of stars. It is backwards now. However, that is going to all make sense in just a second. Let's go back to a sibling of reviewer stars and give ourselves an input with a class of button. And that's going to be a type of submit and a value equals submit review. So now when I give that a refresh, you see that these are side by side. Now when I hover over it, you see that we actually highlight our stars. It is still backwards, and that is because this should be star, singular, not stars. And refresh that. So what we're doing here is if you look at reviewer.scss, what we're doing is we're doing Flexbox to reorder them. So 5 is order 5, 4 is 4, 3 is 3, 2 is 2, 1 is 1. And the reason why we're doing that is because when something is selected or when something is hovered, the labels that are in the future of them will be turned in a yellow. So that's a little CSS hack that you can use is if you do them in the opposite way and then reorder them either with floats or with Flexbox, you can do this little trick where you can have this highlighted and you can just select all the stores that are in the future. So you can see here, if I highlight over the last one, it's 1, but really the last one is the first one because I have reordered them in my CSS. So a little bit confusing there, but if you want to dive a little bit more into CSS to see that little trick that we did, the big thing here is that these are now just selecting the associated radio input for us. And that means when we submit this form, we're going to get the value of the actual input here. So we have this thing, and if I were to say like pretty good and submit that review, we get a 404 because we do not have a route handler for reviews / the ID. So let's do that now. Open up our index.js, go down to the bottom here, right above our API, and we'll say router.post / reviews / ID. And when that happens, we are going to first make sure that they are logged in. So we'll say auth controller.is logged in because we want to make sure that they're actually a user before they post data here. And then second, we want to catch errors, and we're going to use a new controller that we're going to make called review controller. And the method is going to be called add review. Good. So we make sure they're logged in. And of course, we can write this on its own line if this is getting a little bit hairy for you to read. And then we have catch errors on the next line and put that there. Good. Now, you can see my editor is yelling at me. Review controller is not defined. Let's go to the top and let's import a review controller. So you can just duplicate the auth, select your word auth and replace it with review. Then let's make that controller and grab in Mongoose, reference our review model, and then start to add that handler. Exports.add review is equal to, it's in the sync. We have a request and we have a response. And from that, we need a couple of things. So first of all, we're going to get this big payload where we have a couple of different fields that are coming in. We have our text field and we have our review field that are coming in. So let's just try to immediately response.json, the request.body, just see what sort of data we're getting in. So I'm going to have a 3-star, say p good, submit that review. It broke. Let me see what's going on here. I got a crash. Require Mongoose. If I go back to my olive oil store, say it's p good, give me 3 stars, submit that review. And you can see if we're sending back the data that we're getting in the body, we have a text and a rating. There's 2 other pieces of data that we need before that is the author and the store. So what we'll do is we'll say request.body.author is equal to request.user._id. So far, so good. Let's refresh this. And you see that the author ID is coming along because I'm signed in. That's my ID. And then we can duplicate that and say the request.body.store is equal to request. And now where is the store ID? It's in the URL here, right? Request.params.id. So that's the ID that's coming in from the URL. And this is the ID that's coming in from the currently logged in user. Give that a save. If I resubmit that form, you'll now see that I'm getting a text, the rating, the author, and the store values coming in. No problem. Good. So we can get rid of that res.json and we can start to save our new review. So let's make a variable new review, and that's equal to a new review model. And we simply just need to pass it the request.body because that is going to have the text, the rating, the author, and the store on it. Then we can await the new review.save. And once that has saved, we will redirect them back to the page where they came from. And at this point, we can also tell them that their review was successfully saved. So we could say request.flash success review saved. Good. So when somebody posts this URL, we're going to save the author in the store. We're going to take the existing text and rating that they've passed us, and then we are going to save it into our review and then redirect them back to the page. So let's go back to our homepage here. Let's go to one of our stores here. I'm going to go to Randy's Joint, and I'm going to say, this place rocks. Give it a 5-star review and then submit it. It says review saved, and it redirects us right back to Randy's Joint. Now, it's not showing up, but if we are open our MongoDB Compass here, and we go back to our schema and apply, it should be showing up in the sidebar here. I am not seeing it. But if we give it a refresh, just did a Command R and let it reconnect. There we go. Our reviews are now popping up. There is one review. I can open that up. I can look at my documents here and say, this place rocks. The rating is 5. The author is an object ID, and the store is also an object ID. So both of those pieces of data are associated with the actual store. Now comes the question of how do we actually pull in a list of reviews for the specific store? And that's what we'll be doing in the next video.